when you're at home and you hear the doorbell ring or the phone ring, what does somebody do? They answer it. When an iron worker hears a building come down, whether you know it's going to be a job that's planned or like this, a tragedy or a disaster, that's the same situation to us. We put these buildings up, and for the most part, we take them down. So we know what our capabilities and what our capacity is. And that's why we needed to do this, because we knew we were the most highly trained. We were union labor. We went through an apprenticeship program that taught us how and what to do, how to work in a team. We knew we could do this. We knew we were the best opportunity the city had. And we knew that, we believed that there were people under there. And the only way to move all of this was not bucket brigades. In some instances it helped. But for the most part, a man can't move mountains unless you're experienced. And we had the tools to do it, and the knowledge and the know-how.
So how long did you work on the site?
I'm compelled to only talk about my first 4 days because the company I worked for gave us a stipend that can be validated. But I spent 29 to 32 days overall, of which I'd have a tough time proving the rest of my time because I volunteered. People say, well, you had to sign in and sign out. And I could look at you right in the eye and tell you, Steve, no, you didn't. You just had to look like an iron worker. And you were so welcomed at this job site by all the police departments that were on site. The military, when we proved what we could do, I would ask anybody if they wished for validation of this to ask. And there were PBA cards given out that said iron workers. Locals 4361 and 417 on it. So we were honored by the police departments, showing up with our hard hats, our iron working gear, our belts and our spuds and connecting bars, our burning glasses, our strikers, our gloves. That designated who we were, what we were. We were a welcome sight. I continued to go there, even after the Tri-Bow Bridge and Tunnel Authority opened the Marine Parkway Bridge up again, which was the following Monday. We went back to the Marine Parkway Bridge, that's true, but after work some of us kept going down to the Trade Center site. We felt an obligation. We felt a connection. When somebody goes through a trauma, this is what I felt. Personally now, I can't speak of anybody else, but when somebody goes through a trauma, like witnessing what's left of a man's head, a person's torso, arms, legs, brain matter, intestines, when you see that for the first time in your life, the horror, the tragedy, the witnessing of this, for some reason, and I don't know what it is, but as horrible as that was, you feel the connection of going back there. You know nobody else can understand that. Anybody else you talk to, when they tell you, I understand, I know what you're going through, they don't know what you're going, they don't know what you just witnessed. They never witnessed that unless they were in warfare. How do they know? You go for psychological counseling. I know what you went through. No, you don't know what I went through. The only people that know what I went through were down at that site. You felt a connection to go back down there with them. So you kept going back. I kept going back. I kept going back because I was part of the New York State Wildland Search and Rescue. I had a free ticket to enter. It was called an Ironworkers Local 361 Union card. I could get back in there at any time. People don't know what the Ironworker really did there. What every tradesman did. And the thing that needs to be recognized more than anything else, I don't want to be making generalizations here that every man down there was a union member, because I'd be lying. But if you took the one thing that the majority of those people had in common, maybe not every person, but the majority were union members. And these are the people that did the government's dirty work. And why I say that, why I make my comment like that, is George Bush, and there's footage of him saying he would like to get that stock exchange up and running the next day. And we tried our damnedest. We didn't realize we were being used for that. We thought there were people locked in pockets. We kept hearing reports that they were getting some kind of reports from the police department that people were trying to use their cell phones in cars or in pockets that were underground, maybe even in the pathways where people were still alive, calling for help. So I stayed at the ration until my mind was made up that there was nobody left alive. Person who used that practice as it has been practiced before me and will be hopefully practiced after me. I'm doing the right thing, and I did the right thing at the right time. But in pursuing this practice, in pursuing and answering your question, and trying to find that we were going to be used as an expendable object, and I will be more than happy to argue any case of somebody that says we were not. This is my passion now. My anger lies within. We were used. We were used as a body of skilled labor to get out there and get a job done. And what was that job? It was two parts. It was two parts. Nobody in this world can tell me that those people at the very top knew or did not know that there were people still left alive. They knew nobody could live through this tragedy. And if there was, it was a very small percentage. We went there, why? Do you think we went there to get the stock exchange up and running again? I couldn't care less if the stock exchange closes tomorrow and never opens again. I, honest to God, went there to help my fellow man. I became part of search and rescue because I wanted to find a kid that might get lost in the woods, an elderly man or woman that might succumb to Alzheimer's disease, to a hunter that, for some unknown reason, thinks that weapon in his hand's going to get him out of a place that he can't find on his own. I went there for that reason. It was to help my fellow man. When I was very young, my father, he was in the Navy. Then he went to the Merchant Marine Academy. And he was in charge of welding, pipe fitting, and engineering departments at Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy in Great Neck, New York. So when I was very small, he used to bring me down because my brother and I were always fighting, so Mom couldn't take my brother and I at home at the same time, so Pop had to take one of us. So he would take me to the base when we'd be home from school, or there was a summer recess or winter recess, whatever. And he'd have projects he'd have to do. So I'd watch him strike up a torch or strike an arc. And the flames and the sparks and the arc welding, it all intrigued me. So when I started getting older, he put a stinger, a welding handle, in my hand. And he says, now I'm going to put a shield on and I'm going to show you how you weld. And once I learned how to burn a piece of, I think it was 60-10 rod, then he showed me how to set up oxygen acetylene tanks, how to set up the gauges, drain the gauges, hook up the hoses, and everything that involved the safety, maintenance, and proper repair of that equipment. So I was forcefully taught welding, burning, a little bit of pipe fitting, a little bit of engineering by my father. So that served as a basis for my experience in the trades. But my real love, my real passion was the outdoors. So when college was over, when high school was over, my choice of college was not going to Kings Point Merchant Marine Academy like my father wanted me to. It was to go into forestry. Well, I took a job with the Maine Forest Service shortly after high school. And I stayed with them until we had some rough financial economy times in this country. And then I moved back to New York, and I got in with the shop, local 455. I think that was 1978. And I was there until 1983. All the while, from 1980-81, I started working with operating engineers, besides being involved with the shop local. So when I finally was experienced enough in the outdoors, and I showed that I was pretty agile because I was a gymnast in school, I could run track, I went down to local 361's hall through operating engineers, a friend of mine, John Duffy, and I showed that I could hold my own, and I was put out on permit. And that started my career with the structural iron workers. One thing that may someday be put on my tombstone, not being a hero, but that I hate waste. I could see it now. Somebody going to a cemetery, and at this boneyard there's a tombstone that says John Sferazo. He hated waste. What the hell does that mean? I will not let those people that died, my buddy Mike Kendrick, my buddy Patty Fitzgerald, I'm not going to let these people die. That life is not wasted life. I believe they died from their involvement, working shoulder to shoulder to me. But I'm not going to let those lives be wasted. Something inside me tells me I got to get this done, with somebody else helping me or not. I need help. I need all our brothers in solidarity to get out there and help me. Help us. Forget about helping me. Let's help us. Let's help our fellow union member, our fellow worker. You don't want to do this because you don't belong to a union? That's fine too. The unions, we set the basis for an 8-hour workday, time and a half on overtime, Saturdays and Sundays off. We set holidays, vacation time. No matter who you are, whether you're union or non-union, you better recognize it. Now, whether you're union or not, you have to accept that the unions serve a purpose. Okay, so if you're not union, then do this for your fellow worker. Let's make sure that we are not enslaved by labor, that we can have an upper hand in labor, that a laborer has a decision in his workplace, that every man is allowed the opportunity to be his own steward, not just in a union environment. Let's make this world a safer world to work in. Let's get legislation passed. Let's let the lives of these people that have been lost, those who died in the collapse, the firemen, the people afterwards, the volunteers, the area residents, the school children, the illegal immigrants that we used as slave labor. Let's get their lives utilized correctly. Let's not waste it. So when you go to a cemetery and you see a tombstone that says this guy hated waste, understand that I can't let something as precious as life be wasted. My uncles fought for this country. I lost some of them. I never got to meet them before my time. My family, my mom's side of the family, part Italian or Italian that was executed by the Nazis. They fought for future generations. I'm here right now to pay homage to all that life and the life after me. My anger came from losing my buddies, seeing people die around me. Everybody talks about Tim Keller. I want people to know Tim Keller was an emergency medical technician, an EMT. Tim Keller went through psychological counseling. Tim Keller went through psychological counseling with me in group therapy. Tim Keller's tombstone was being paid for by local 361 ironworkers. Tim Keller was not a union man out of the ironworkers local. But the ironworkers stood up at a conference that we held, President Dick O'Kane, a business manager, stood up along with Donald Cusick and told the family of Tim Keller that we will pay for that tombstone. I knew Tim Keller pretty well. There's no doubt in my mind that Tim Keller died from his involvement. Too many things he told me, too many things that were mentioned in group therapy. I can't talk about them, but too many things were said. That leads me to know this man could not fabricate this story. We had so many people falling through the cracks because of psychological trauma. What are they spending the money on? They're not using it. They're not using it to pay bills. They're not paying their car, their monthly loan payment, their rent. They're not using it for that, their mortgage. They're not buying food. They got a disease. A lot of them are suffering. A lot of them are suffering in silence. So what do they do to get rid of that pain? And this is where drug abuse and alcoholism was getting funded in the beginning. Not a lot of it, but enough that it meant something. It meant enough that I have to question how many suicides were financially funded. How many people's deaths have been financially funded? So we sat down, a board that I started putting together. Through Victor Fusco, we created a name. Well, people calling us a hero. We're not heroes. I still, to this day, I look you in the eye and I tell you I am not a hero. I find that a derogatory statement. I'm not a hero. I'm a guy that would do the same thing you would do. So it's been an uphill battle since with government to get our medical, pharmaceutical, psychological, financial needs. And something people don't realize, without the government stepping in to accept its responsibilities and obligations, if the average member at Ground Zero was a union member, if the government didn't come forward with their obligations and responsibilities, if they haven't come forth yet to step up to the plate and acknowledge responsibility, then where does the average member that was at 9/11, where does he or she go for their medical benefits? You know, many times I've said that I felt like a farmer's crop. You know, a farmer looks at a field and he looks at, well, let's see, that soil can provide me with good habitat for a crop. In some ways, I feel like our government looked at union labor and said, you know what? They can get a 2-part program accomplished for me. We'll let them go in there. We'll let them get Wall Street back up and running. But you know what the second part is, Steve? Very few people know that in the warehousing of the World Trade Center site was $241 million that belonged to Scotiabank, the Bank of Nova Scotia. There were a chain of armored cars sitting on a West Side highway waiting for us to expose that gold and silver that belonged to Scotiabank. You couldn't have left that money sitting there. Nobody wants to leave a treasure sitting in the ground. Pirates used to bury it so nobody else would find it, so they could come back and feel the wealth again. Well, so does the banking system. The banking system wanted to get their hands back on that gold and treasure, that currency. And nobody could tell me that they didn't put pressure on our government. Nobody could tell me that number one priority wasn't Wall Street and number two wasn't that gold and silver. So when I look at the union labor I was down at the World Trade Center site. When I think of the phenomenal job, the accolades, the attaboys, the pats on the backs, the handshakes and the claps that were given to us during our endeavor at 9/11, I look at us now like we were a crop. Maximum yield. Maximum yield from that crop. Look what we did. We saved them billions of dollars in labor costs by being skilled labor, by getting Wall Street up and running in 5 to 7 days. I honestly don't remember the day. My mind is shot for memory, but I believe it was 5 to 7 days. We had Wall Street up, and in a couple few days, in a couple few weeks, we had that $241 million in gold and silver excavated back in its owner's hands. So I feel like we were used. We were a crop, an expendable entity. And why I feel the need to use the word expendable? Because we were left out to dry. We were left out there on our own after we got the job done. If we were the golden goose, and we were going to be bred for those golden eggs, they'd keep giving us the medical and pharmaceutical and psychological needs. They'd worry about our financial needs now, so we wouldn't have situations where people are committing suicide because they can't afford to keep their family running. I wouldn't have, like this morning, I got a call here 17 minutes after 7. I asked the man that owns this house if I woke him or his wife up, because I got a phone call. I got a phone call from a guy that was telling me he was going to wait till 12 o'clock on Friday afternoon to drive his Corvette into a train because this man can't take it no more. Nobody could tell me that our government is doing its job. Nobody.